Okay, in this next video, we're looking at a different version of selection. Okay, so this previous one, we just looked at if this is true, then we execute this line of code. Okay, but we could also have it if this is true, then do this. Otherwise, do something else. So it's quite simple. So we'll say if medical. So if this is true, we print this out. You're due for a medical. But then we could actually have it, well, what if it's not true? So we can put an else in here. Now, this else doesn't require a condition like this did. We had to say if medical is equal to true, then we print that message. But else, well, this else just means then that if this is not true. Okay, and we can just print that and do two dots, and when you press enter, it automatically goes to the next line. And we'll say currently no need for a medical. That's it. It's that simple. So I'm just going to actually close this on the shell and run this program. Check it out. So save it. And hopefully it'll run sometime today. A bit slow sometimes. Right, so you are due for a medical, it says. Okay, so if this is false, run it. Currently no need for a medical. Right, so you can imagine this being, I don't know, part of an application, like say it was on your mobile phone, as an example, or in a website, and your doctor has reviewed your medical history and they've ticked that box saying whether you need a medical or not. And then you look at it, your website, and it says, hello, Paul, and it says how old you are, and it says your temperature, and then it tells you whether you're due to make a an appointment to go and have a medical observation of some sort, right? So these are all kinds of things that you could imagine that you would need to do in a program, right? And this would be quite useful to be able to do this. So this is the if this condition is true, if this has been met or this condition is true, it will execute this code. If the condition has not been met, then it will execute this line of code. Nice and simple, okay? What we'll do though is we will make an alternative version to this just to reinforce this, right? So I'm going to do, going to save this. Sorry, I should have saved this actually as selection 01, which I didn't do, so I'm going to do that 02. Save. I will just take out that else, so I have the previous one as well. Save as selection 1. Right, so I'm just keeping all of these separate exercises. So you can see I've got all of these ones, right? So selection 1, 2, got sequence, got assignment. Now that's one. I'm going to do save as, and of course I've got selection 2, so I'm going to now change it to 3. Change the name up there to 3, and I'm going to now do another one. Okay, so this new one, this selection 3, we're just going to get rid of all of this, and we'll just do a basic selection by itself. So we've done if and an else, and we're going to try this if else. So we're going to do something different. We're going to ask a question, okay, and we're going to say if the temperature is over 30 degrees, then we'll say turn the heating on. And if the temperature is under let's say, yeah, so if it's under 30, then we will not do anything, okay? Right, so we're going to need to take some input. So we're going to say temperature, and we'll call it just temp. We'll put a comment above it, and we'll say variable to store the temperature, input from, and we'll say keyboard input, okay, so keyboard input, that's what this is going to be. All right, so temp. Now, this is going to look a bit different. Instead of actually just putting, like, let's say 30 degrees or something like that, we're actually going to ask the user to give us the temperature. So this would probably be automatic, of course, in a real world scenario where you would have this connected to an input device such as a temperature sensor, a thermostat, okay? And the thermostat would give you a temperature reading, and you could store that in this variable, okay? But we don't have that, not with our program. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just write in a variable, right? So a temperature. So to do that, we need to put this function called input, okay? Let's open and close brackets, and we'll do comment. And what you're going to have to understand is that an input by default, because it's coming from the keyboard, this by default is going to be a string, right? A string data type. But we don't want it to be a string, we want it to be an integer, okay? So we're going to say integer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make this input an integer. So we will say int, open bracket, and then close bracket on the end. So that means that the input that we give here needs to be an integer, okay? And we could just test this. We can just test it out by printing, and we'll just print temp. So let's run it. Now you notice I haven't necessarily, well, I've saved it as selection 3. So when I run it, you can see it's done absolutely nothing. But if I put 25, it's now printing 25, okay? So the fact that it's done nothing here, I actually just wrote 25 and then it just repeated that. So it's outputted what the temperature is. That's a problem because we would want, if you were a user of this program and you didn't know how the program worked, you would be waiting for it to do something, okay? So we can prompt the user. So inside of this input, we will put a prompt, and we'll do that with quotes, and we'll say input the temperature. And we'll do that like that, okay? Now, we'll run that again, and input the temperature now, it says, so it's prompted us to actually do something this time. That's the prompt, this bit that's inside our input, okay? And we need to put an integer, so if we put 25, and it's just going to repeat that again. Now, what problems might you have? Well, of course, sometimes the temperature's not exactly a whole number. So, if you put 25.3 as an example, we get a value error, okay? And this is a different type of error than what you've seen before. What you've seen before is a type error, or you've seen a name error, and you've seen syntax errors. But this one is a value error. So invalid literal for int with a base of 10. A base of 10 is any numbers that, you know, from 0 to 9. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10 possibilities, right? So 2 is from 0 to 9. 0.5 is 0 to 9, but this 0.3 is not an integer, okay? So it's saying that this is what we've been given, and we've inputted an invalid value for that. So maybe you want the temperature to be an integer, but you could actually make it a float instead. So float is that real number, okay? So it's a real or float, as we would call it in Python, okay? But in other programming languages, sometimes it's not called that. Right, so if I now put 25, okay, it's giving me that with the decimal point. So it actually works even if I've just inputted an integer. Run it again. And 25.6, and then that works fine. Okay, so good. So we got that out of the way. We've got that bit first of all. Now, what we might want to do is put this into a procedure. Okay, so we'll say def and we'll say main, which is quite a common one, so like for our main program, and we're going to select all of this, press tab so it's inside of there. Okay, we'll do a comment above it. We'll say takes the temperature and gives feedback. Right, so instead of printing the temperature, we don't want to print that. We're going to ask or find out using selection if the temperature is over a certain if it's over a certain temperature. Okay, so we will do if temp, and we could say if it's greater than or equal to, and we can put in a number. Let's say it's 30. Okay. Then we will print the message saying turn the aircon on, right, to cool the room down. Okay. Otherwise, we're saying then if it's not greater than or equal to 30, we're saying it's less than 30, right? So we will say the else. So if it's less than, we can just print turn the aircon off. Now you notice I forgot to put the quotes, so I'll just put it there. Oh. And close that. And that's our program. So if I run it, run module, of course you notice that I have to type main. So main, input the temperature. So if I put 31.2, turn the aircon on to cool the room down, type main again, and I put 20, or let's say I put 29.9, turn the aircon off. Okay, so that's just a simple alternative just to look at if else, but you can notice that we're using this operator this time. We're using this greater than or equal to 30. So if I run my program again, and I'll say exactly 30 degrees, it's going to say turn the aircon on to cool the room down. Okay. Now, if I had taken this equal sign away, then it would have to be over 30. So 30 degrees would say turn the aircon off. So it really depends what you're wanting to do. You've got these operators, of course, that you can choose from.